Good afternoon. My name is Megan Norris, and today I'm going to be talking about artificial intelligence in the classroom, tools for learning and assessment. So, I'm going to start today by talking about ChatGPT. My learning environment for this technology tool would be a multimedia computer class at an urban middle school in Southern California. This activity is multidisciplinary, so it's going to be covering standards for eighth grade history, English language arts, and multimedia. And my target audience for this assignment is a class of eighth grade students. So let's begin with ChatGPT, a technology for learning. My intended audience is a middle school class, so I'm going to speak as if I were working with that age group. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be starting a new unit where we are going to be using a new kind of technology called ChatGPT along with iMovie to tell a story. So let's first start by looking at our agenda. As always, whenever we start a new unit, we're going to begin by reviewing our objectives, what are we learning, why are we learning it, and how will we know that we have learned it. I'm going to expect that this project is going to take about a week or so. So for today, I'm going to start by introducing you to what ChatGPT is. And then tomorrow, after we've become a little bit more familiar with it, we'll use it to begin the story development process. The rest of our time, we're going to move through the production process, taking our narratives from ChatGPT into script writing, storyboarding, editing, and production. And then there's always those of you who like to finish early, so I do have some extension activities for you, but we'll go over those near the end of the project timeline. So let's look first at our objectives for our project. So what am I learning, why am I learning it, and how will I know that I have learned it? There's a lot that you're going to be learning with this activity, and we have quite a few questions that we're going to be asking ourselves throughout the process. What impact did the American Civil War have on families? How can I use ChatGPT in a responsible, ethical way to write a compelling story that is historically accurate? How will working with others improve my communication and decision making skills? Why are you learning it? What is our purpose? So, everything that we do in this class needs to have a purpose. So, let's look at the reasons why we're doing this activity. Engaging with historical concepts in a storytelling format is going to allow you to make connections to what you're learning on a more personal level. And some of those more difficult facts are going to be more relatable and more memorable to you. Using ChatGPT to facilitate or to move forward the storytelling process is going to help you with critical thinking and ethical reflection. So, the difference between right and wrong when we're doing what we're doing. So, when it comes to historical accuracy within a narrative text, we want to make sure that we're making good decisions. Using AI or artificial intelligence tools like ChatGPT with multimedia software like iMovie is also going to help build our digital literacy. And finally, when you do work with others, it helps you practice your communication skills, and it's going to give you the opportunity to engage in constructive feedback with your classmates. So, what we create at the end, we're going to share with each other, and then we're all going to provide feedback to each other. So, at the end, how will you know that you have learned it? You're going to work collaboratively with another group of people to produce an original movie using iMovie based on a fictional narrative. So, a narrative that is not true but is still based on fact that's going to be written by ChatGPT. That will reflect the conflicts that families faced while living in the Civil War era United States. So, any questions, comments, or concerns before I move on? Okay. So now I'm going to go over the rubric, but not in detail at this moment. Instead, I am going to put it on the assignment page for you in Canvas. So as you're working through the project, make sure you refer to that to kind of remind yourself of what your end grade will be based on. I do want you to focus right now on the row that I have highlighted here. This concept, critical thinking and ethical considerations, is going to be our focus for today. You'll see that the tool I'm introducing you to, ChatGPT, is going to require that you think critically and consider how it can be used in a responsible, meaningful way. That said, I'm going to leave the rubric up for just a moment, and if there are any questions that come up right now, I'll give you some time for that. All right, let's move on. So again, this rubric is posted for you on the assignment page, so feel free to bring up any questions, comments, or concerns that you have as we're working over the next couple of weeks. So, ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence technology tool. So, let's get an idea of what we know about AI before we dive too deep into ChatGPT specifically. So, I've shared this link to the slide deck with all of you on Canvas. If you could please connect to the presentation and find slide number 7. Don't do anything until everyone has connected. Okay, great. Now that we're all connected, take a moment to make a note of some of the ideas about what artificial intelligence or AI means to you. There's no right or wrong answer to this, just write what you know or what you think you might know. All right, let's take a look at some of these responses. So let's begin at the beginning. What is ChatGPT? Well, like I've kind of already said, it's an artificial intelligence or AI tool. It's powerful and kind of all knowing, but pretty easy to use once you get the hang of it. Working with ChatGPT is like talking with a computer that can answer your questions, give you ideas, help you translate. The possibilities are actually endless. However, it is important to remember that with great power comes great responsibility. We've talked quite a bit in the past about our responsibilities as digital citizens. The way that we interact with ChatGPT puts what we have learned to the test. So, here's some of the top tips to remember when you're using ChatGPT. So let's start with research. Make sure you're using your resources that you trust to research your topic before you begin using ChatGPT. That way you come prepared with an understanding of the content and you're not going to be caught by surprise with anything that ChatGPT might come up with. When you get your information from ChatGPT, make sure you verify it. That means you're going to have to use a couple of reliable resources to fact check the information that ChatGPT has given you, especially in an activity like what we're doing this week, where you're going to want to be historically accurate. Be sure to restate the information that ChatGPT gives you. That means you're going to want to put the information into your own words, which will help you avoid plagiarism, but is also going to help you remember the information better. Always remember to cite your sources. You want to make sure that you're giving other people credit for their work. Also, keep in mind that ChatGPT can sometimes give inaccurate information even when it's citing its own sources. Be respectful. If you're using ChatGPT to research people or cultures, make sure you're engaging in a conversation that uses appropriate language and avoids assumptions. We're talking about historical concepts with this assignment, so make sure you're aware of multiple perspectives because that will help you present an unbiased view. Think critically. What you're about to use can be amazing, but not perfect. Look at the information that it presents to you with a critical lens, making sure that you analyze and evaluate everything that ChatGPT shares with you. Finally, and most importantly, make positive ethical choices. When using artificial intelligence, it can be tempting to use it for the wrong reasons. Make sure that you are using it in a positive way that helps the world around you and keeps you in line with being a good digital citizen. So, what I want to do right now is walk you through the steps of either creating an account with ChatGPT or starting your first conversation. So, let's take a look at this flow chart first. Then I will model the steps for you. After that, I'll have you follow the steps yourself while I walk around and answer any questions that might come up. So you can see we're going to start by logging in and creating an account with our student Google email account. It's going to ask you to tell a little bit about yourself. You should have a cell phone number that it can send you a code for, and then we'll get started with the messages. So let me walk you through that myself. Okay. Let's get back to where we were. Okay, so I already have an account, so I can go ahead and log in. If you don't, then you're going to start at sign up. So let's pretend as if we've all already logged in. So I'm going to continue with my Google student email. And you can see here down at the bottom is where I'm going to start a conversation. I can ask it anything that I want. You can see that I've already started a conversation in the past where I asked, "What is ChatGPT?" and it gave me a response. I would want to go back and check that response with others, with other value or verifiable resources. I can also make adjustments to the response. So if I'm not completely happy, I can regenerate it. So I can create a new response by clicking on the regenerate button. Or I can, for example, say, how can ChatGPT be used in the classroom? And it will generate a response for me. Okay. So, what I want you to do right now is take a moment to explore ChatGPT yourself. Go ahead and create your account and then take the time. If you can't think of anything to ask, you can see that I've given you some ideas for conversations that you can have. Make sure you focus on starting a conversation and then revising it, what you ask it to do, so that you can practice refining your results. Try a different couple of topics just so you can get the hang of how to use this new resource. So now that we've learned a little bit more about artificial intelligence and one way that we can use it in a responsible way, let's revisit our question from the start of class. Navigate back to the presentation and find slide number 12. Don't do anything until we've got everyone on the same page. So now that you've had an opportunity to interact with artificial intelligence a little bit, how have your thoughts about AI changed? Are they still the same? And in what ways? What new questions has today's experience brought up for you? Take a moment and write a note of reflection on the slide. Now take a couple more moments and discuss with your table what artificial intelligence means to you after today's experience. And that's where we are going to end for today. Looking ahead to tomorrow, we're going to start on day 1 of our new assignment. The plan is to use ChatGPT to write a historical narrative about the conflicts families faced during the American Civil War. So be sure to come with any information you might have gathered from conversations about the war that you've been having in your history classes. All right, so now I'm going to switch gears to part two of this presentation where I will be sharing the technology tool QuestionWell. The learning environment for this portion of the presentation would be a professional development session at an urban middle school in Southern California. The topic on this professional development is how to use QuestionWell as a means of creating comprehension questions for a reading selection, and my target audience is a group of middle school teachers and staff. So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our professional development for this Thursday afternoon. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you an AI technology tool called QuestionWell that can be used for assessment, both formal and informal. So, let's take a moment to talk about today's agenda. I want to start by gauging what your thoughts are about artificial intelligence in the classroom before I share with you what QuestionWell is. I'd like to demonstrate how to use QuestionWell for those of you who have not used it already, and then give you some time to experiment with it. At the end, we're going to wrap it all up by sharing what we've learned through this process. Before we dive in, I do want to share with you my goals for today. I know that artificial intelligence can be a scary thing for some people, but it can be used in ways that are going to make our lives as teachers much easier if we're responsible and meaningful in how we use it. With today's professional development, I want to share with you how to generate assessment questions more efficiently, as well as how we can use those questions on some of the popular assessment platforms that we already rely on, like Kahoot, Quizlet, Blicket, or Google Forms. And at the end of the day, I hope that you've gained a better understanding of how AI can be used as an educational tool that will save us time while also enhancing student engagement. Now, y'all are adults, so I'm not going to grade you, but I do want you at the end of today to reflect on how you interacted with this professional development session. This rubric that you see here will show you the criteria I'm going to be asking you to reflect on at the end of our time together today. All right, let's get into it. I want to start by getting a better idea of how you view artificial intelligence in terms of bringing it into the classroom. So take a moment to silently ask yourself these questions. What do you already know about AI? Where has your knowledge come from? Based on what you know, what role do you think AI has in the classroom? So, as a next step, let's have a roundtable conversation. And with your table, I'd like you to create a thinking map on the poster board that you've been given based on your responses to the questions that you just reflected on. The way you format your thinking map is totally up to your table. Now, let's take a moment to share out what our tables discussed. So, I've said the word QuestionWell a few times, but what is it? QuestionWell is an emerging artificial intelligence tool that specifically targets teachers who want to create questions based on a reading selection. Those questions can then be uploaded to a variety of other tools, such as quizzes, Google Slides, or Word, to be used for both formal and informal assessment. The biggest challenge for QuestionWell is that it is very new. However, being a fresh concept means that there is room for growth and improvement. Even at its most basic, it's still a very useful tool for teachers. I've used Blicket, Quizlet, Kahoot so many times over the years, but the most frustrating aspect of those tools is coming up with questions for the sets. QuestionWell takes away that frustration while also opening up possibilities for reading comprehension and assessment. Depending on how you, as the teacher, chooses to use the tools, the students can engage with its quote unquote product, the questions it generates, in ways that encourage self assessment and monitoring of their learning. So let's take a look at the steps for logging in. And then afterwards, I'll take a minute to show you how it works. So here is QuestionWell, and I'm going to sign in with Google, and I'm going to use my work email to sign in. And you can see here up at the top is where I will put the topic, the subject, and the grade level. And then any kind of reading that I have, I'm going to copy and paste into this section here. It does a lot for 1,000 words, so it can be a pretty meaningful piece of writing. And then any outcomes or standards that you want the questions to focus on, you can put in this space here. Now, unfortunately, there is a pay feature to this activity. So without paying, you only have access to multiple choice, which is good for Kahoot and Blicket and those kinds of things. But if you want something that's got a little bit more oomph to the questions, like fill in the blank or short answer, you would have to pay. Once you do create an activity, you can see that it's going to be in the saved sets part. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and do one from the past. So you can see that these are my learning outcomes or the standards that I wanted the kids to use, and it breaks it down, the questions, how many questions target each of those standards. I can export it to any of these different assessment tools, or I can just print it out and use it for a reading assignment. So I do want to give you some time to explore QuestionWell a little bit. If you're not sure where to start, you can start by opening a tab to your content area standards and see if you can find an article that you can use to introduce one of your unit topics. Another suggestion for how this can be used is for subplans. Find an article about an athlete, historical figure, artist, author, scientist, mathematician, and use QuestionWell to create a reading comprehension activity students can do with your guest teacher. All right, so let's take a second to wrap up and reflect on what we've talked about today. Take a moment to ask yourself if this is a tool that you can see yourself using, and why or why not. How has today impacted your view of artificial intelligence in the classroom? All right, with your table, discuss those responses to the questions that you just reflected on. And now let's share out whole group. I do want to take it back to that rubric from the beginning of today's PD and have a moment to self-reflect on our experience. Before you leave, use the link to the Google form in your email to rate yourself on each of these criteria and how you interacted with today. I am going to stick around for a bit afterwards just in case anyone has any questions, comments, or concerns they want to share about QuestionWell or artificial intelligence in general, or maybe some of the AI tools that I have used in the past.